Time has expired. Mr. Schock of Illinois. I yield to him for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for your testimony. I have two quick questions. Mr. Dodaro, I come from the state of Illinois, a state that has roughly a $9 billion deficit. Our governor has proposed a 60% increase in the income tax, and we're struggling with the programs and services that our state currently has. A part of the stimulus plan and part of your testimony speaks to the maintenance effort and the commitment by states that they have to make in order to get the requisite stimulus dollars. My question is specifically, what are we doing as a federal government and what to ensure that when a state says, yes, we will continue to maintain these programs to get X funding now, what are we doing to ensure that actually happens, number one? And then number two, what happens in 2 years from now in a state like mine in Illinois where we don't have the money for the services we have today, and now we have additional services we don't have today that we will have to support on into the future, and what true force can we take, or what measures are you suggesting that we have that can force them to basically come up with the money at the state level?
I think, first of all, there are a number of maintenance of effort requirements in the Medicaid program, for example, that eligibility standards remain the same as they were for June 2008.
Mr. Dodaro, could you put your microphone on, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
In the Medicaid program, there are maintenance of effort requirements in the Medicaid program, in the highway program, and the education programs. Those are the big three so far. We are carefully looking at how the federal agencies are monitoring those maintenance of effort requirements. In Medicaid, it hinges on eligibility requirements. Highways, they have to provide, states have to, governors have to provide certifications. Transportation is reviewing those certifications right now, and there are waiver provisions, however, in there that the agency heads have in order to entertain waivers from the states. Now,
and that's for today.
That's for
what
today.
happens in 2 years when agreement that was signed by Governor A, who's no longer in office,
right,
and Governor B is now having to deal with the reality of whatever commitment was made by that state to maintain those Medicaid reimbursement levels or income levels to qualify for Medicaid. What happens in 3 years from now when the legislature, who's duly elected and has a fiduciary responsibility to balance their budget, decides, you know what, we can't afford these new rates that were specified in the Recovery Act 3 years ago that a former governor and maybe a former legislature had agreed to?
Yeah. Well, first of all, in the Medicaid area, that money ends December 2010, so it's only for a 27-month period in any event. I do think there's a responsibility of the government on the part of federal agencies to make sure that they monitor as it's going along. They shouldn't wait until 2 years.
But what happens, what specific action can we take to force them to honor their word? Because I guess what I'm confused about is we have some governors that are saying, great, thanks for the money, we'll take it. And we have other governors who are saying, whoa, in 3 years we can't afford the commitment that you're all asking us to take in exchange for taking the money today. And yet I'm having difficulty seeing where our power in the Congress or the President or your office has in 3 years to ensure that a new governor and a new legislature has to honor that commitment.
Yeah, well, you're raising a good point. I think it's something that needs to be monitored all along.
Okay, but the only reason I'm cutting you off is because I've only got a minute left. I've got a question for Mr. Neighbors. I guess my question is, why shouldn't every governor take the money, tell you whatever you want to hear? Because up until now, I haven't heard a good explanation from you as to how we're going to force them to honor the commitment that we're expecting them to take in exchange for the money.
Well, for example, in the Medicaid area, if they don't honor the commitments, they don't get the matching share of the funds.
For the first 2 years.
Right. Well, that's the only amount of funding that's available. I'll go back. I'll provide you a specific answer for the record for each of these programs of what mechanisms are in place to make sure that those commitments are honored.
Okay. And I'm specifically interested in not how we're going to monitor and tell them they didn't do it, but what specifically in year 3 and 4, which from talking to the governors who haven't taken the funding, is their concern in keeping those higher income levels in place and so on, what our force will be to go after them if they don't, because I guess my suggestion to those governors who haven't taken the money is it sounds like you can take the money, tell them whatever you want to hear, because there's not a whole lot we can do in year 3 and 4 and into the future. Mr. Neighbors, real quick, reviewing what I've heard in the testimony, I couldn't agree with your final several paragraphs in your testimony, which basically said it's not government that creates jobs, it's not government spending that will stimulate the economy, it's private investment, private entrepreneurs, and risk-taking, and I truly believe that to be the case.
The gentleman's time has expired, so could you cut it short?
Can I have a few 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
Okay. I guess, you know, what we know, and it's been said by my companions up here, you know, President said there's unemployment would peak at 8%. It's at 9.5%. He's conceded that it's going to reach double digits by the end of the summer. Your testimony here today, $75 billion has been spent to create 150,000 jobs. That comes out to $500,000 a job. Your comment earlier was roughly $92,000 in government spending should create a job. So my question specifically is in the jobs number. If we're not going to say we've failed in terms of being off course on what the unemployment rate would actually be, we're not even near what the expectation is in terms of job cost of government spending to create a job. If we're usually operating under a $92,000 per job creation number, and we've spent $75 billion to create 150,000 jobs.
Gentleman's time has long expired.
That's $500,000.
And I
thank
think,
you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.